Thank you, Mark, and thank you for the opportunity. It's a great honor for me to be here today. As Mark has mentioned, I'll bring in a European perspective, and I will talk about Turkey as a gatekeeper country. First, I provide you a brief geographical and the recent historical overview. Then I will introduce the March 2016 EU-Turkey statement on migration, and at the end, I'll evaluate the deal a bit. So Turkey has a unique geostrategic position, which makes it important for both the United States and Europe for different reasons. As for Europe, Turkey plays a dual role. On the one hand, it is a very important bridge or transit country. It's enough to think of energy policy and the transit of oil and natural gas from the post-Soviet region and the Middle East. And on the other hand, when speaking about different kind of flows, for example, mass irregular migration, the Europe wants Turkey to play the role of a buffer, or more like an insulator state, rather than a bridge. Turkey's geographical location has also contributed to the fact that the country has become the host of the largest number of refugees in the world. According to the data of UNHCR, 3.8 million refugees are residing in Turkey. Most of them, about 3.5 million people, are from Syria. Turkey is a neighboring country of Syria. That's why it is affected so much from the war started in 2011. And the others are mainly from Afghanistan, Iraq, and Iran. The European Union realized the significance of Turkey as a transit or insulator state in 2015 quite quickly, at the peak of the European migration and refugee crisis. As you can see on the map, in the year of 2015, more than 885,000 irregular migrants arrived from Turkey to the continent via the so-called Eastern Mediterranean migration route. Most of them, about 500,000 people, were from Syria, but there were about 200,000 Afghans and almost 100,000 Iraqi citizens as well. This mass wave of irregular migrants caught Europe completely off guard. It soon became obvious that it was necessary to come to an agreement with Turkey to stop this inflow. This led in March 2016 to the so-called EU-Turkey statement. This 9 points long document was a political statement and not a legally binding treaty. The statement stated that all new irregular migrants crossing from Turkey into Greek island will be returned to Turkey. And Turkey agreed to take any necessary measures to prevent illegal crossings. After the signing of this agreement, the number of irregular arrivals dropped significantly, as you can see it on the slide as well. The blue line is for 2015 and the orange one is for 2016, and it is in a monthly breakdown. What did Turkey get in exchange? Well, money and vague promises. As for the latter, I unfortunately don't have the time to go into details. The remaining points of the statement are about the acceleration of Turkey's visa liberalization roadmap, its EU accession process, a voluntary humanitarian admission scheme that will be activated by the EU, and cooperation in Syria. And let's say that what happened in these regards has not fulfilled Ankara's expectations. But what they have received is money. 3.3 plus 3 billion euros under the facility for refugees in Turkey. And since then, in 2020, an additional 3 billion euros were allocated for the same humanitarian purposes. It is important to note that assistance provided within the framework of the facility is project-based. So this money does not go directly to the Turkish government. The use of the funds is managed by a steering committee chaired by the European Commission and with the participation of representatives of the member states. Most of the projects are implemented by international NGOs, so the whole process is very transparent, thoroughly planned and monitored. What was this money spent for? You can see several examples. An important background information is that Turkey provides the Syrians under temporary protection free access to education and healthcare. And there are the examples. For example, more than 130 new schools were built, 7.2 million vaccination doses were provided to refugee children, and these are not COVID-19 related vaccination. There is a debate on whether this amount of money is much or not. I would argue that taking everything into account, it is not that much at all. Just to add several more pieces of data, about 45% of Syrians are under 18 years old, and almost about 90% of the working Syrians work in the informal economy, so they don't pay taxes and don't contribute to the state budget this way. Of course, the EU-Turkey agreement was not the sole measure introduced by the EU as a reaction to the migration crisis. In parallel, Greece and several other member states threatened border control. Fences were built all around the continent. That also contributed to the closing of the so-called Balkan migration route. And since 2015, Turkey has also built walls on its eastern borders with Syria and Iran. Is the EU-Turkey deal still working? Could we ask? Well, sort of. Turkey suspended readmissions due to COVID-19 in 2020, and then as a response, Greece designated Turkey as a safe third country for the citizens of, for example, Syria, Afghanistan, and Somalia, which means that it doesn't accept asylum applications from the citizens of these countries if they are coming through Turkey. However, what is most probably the most important for the EU is that the number of irregular crossings has remained relatively low. In 2020 and 2021, it was about 200,000 irregular crossings, and last year it was a little bit above 42,000. These relatively low numbers can be partly thanks to the EU's financial support that helps Syrians to start a new life in Turkey, which they don't want to risk for the uncertain. And it is also the result of the stricter border control introduced by most of the actors concerned. And of course, it is thanks to the great extent to Turkey's hospitality. Why I emphasize this last one? Because there is a growing dissatisfaction in the Turkish society with the presence of the refugees. We have surveys clearly showing this tendency. The refugee issue has become one of the topics of the ongoing Turkish election campaign as well. The Turkish people don't want to bear this burden alone forever, which is totally understandable, I think. Even more so because Turkey has been struggling with an economic crisis right now. And at some point, this situation may drive the country's leadership to a reckless move, for example, repealing the temporary protection regime. So I think this is something we should definitely watch out for in the future. And to sum up, the EU has outsourced the Syrian refugee crisis to Turkey. From the EU's point of view, the deal has been effective, but it can be criticized from a normative point of view. It is also important to keep in mind that this deal will most probably not last forever. So we should need to think about how we could make the EU-Turkey cooperation on migration sustainable. And at the end, I think, not surprisingly, as Victor also mentioned, a right combination of sticks and carrots are required. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.